Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're outside doing a little bit of shooting in about 4 or 5 degree weather, and as you can see, we've gotten some snow, so we did have a white Christmas. I hope everybody had a great Christmas, and we're looking forward to a very happy new year. We hope to be doing some shooting on New Year's Day, which is just a couple days away. But in my hands, I want to share with you guys the Arcus 98DA, which is a 9mm Browning type action firearm, Browning high power to be more specific. And it is a Bulgarian made pistol, and it has a military pedigree. So Arcus has been in business for quite some time. They are a Bulgarian arms manufacturer. They manufacture all sorts of stuff, mortars and other weapons, and they also manufacture small arms. So they make this gun over there. They do use it in their military, special operations, I believe. I don't think it's a general issue pistol because I know the Makarov is still, or a Makarov is still you guys always give me a hard time about the pronunciation of that. It's still an issued weapon over there, but this is also used by Bulgarian forces, police and military. So it's a very interesting little pistol. It's very heavily based on the Browning high power, right down to the fact that you can see that that looks just like a high power slide stop. It is a double action, single action pistol without a decocker, but it does have a manual safety. It's very much like a high power in that regard. And we're going to do a little bit of shooting with it this afternoon and have some fun with it and give you guys some thoughts. Now, this is its very first range session. We have not cleaned the pistol. I haven't lubricated it. I just want to see how it works out of the box, bone dry, because that's exactly what it is, bone dry. So, trusting that it's a military service pistol, I think it should do just fine, especially given the fact it's based on the Browning high power. So let's load up some magazines, do a little bit of shooting. This is 147 grain ball ammunition from Munitions. This is the very first 15 rounds that we're going to fire through the gun. The action seems pretty smooth. Looks like it has a nice gray park finish to it. We have a manual safety, no decocker, so if you want to put the hammer down, you'll notice the hammer doesn't even have a hole through it, and the spur is very, very, I don't know. You would easily be able to slip your thumb off that if you're thumbing the hammer down and have an accidental discharge there. So you can pinch the hammer and release it and decock it for that first double action shot, which we're going to try to see how this double action feels. Nice. Yeah, that trigger's nice and light. That single action trigger is really, really nice and crisp. Very little over travel. Double action, typical double action, not real gritty, not real heavy. The single action is really, really nice. Really nice. So there we go, first 15 rounds. No functional issues. We got one more magazine. The gun does ship with 2. All right, guys, let's take a closer look at the Arcus 98DA. When you get the pistol, it's going to come in this rather generic, kind of Chinese-looking quality cardboard box. It's very flimsy, you know, very cost-effective, which I think lends itself to the fact that it's very affordable. I bought this handgun from Westforth Guns in Gary, Indiana, and it comes with a little slip here that shows that it was certified by one of the factory technicians. Comes with 2 magazines, and this is actually a metal cleaning rod. I probably won't take it out, but it's just a standard metal cleaning rod inside of there. And then it has a magazine, spare magazine here, and the gun here, and 1 mag in the gun. So you do get a total of 2 15-round magazines with the gun. It's imported by Century Arms. That's just a copy of the Federal Firearms License. You get this manual, which is well illustrated and shows you the complete diagram of the gun. Now, it would seem that Century is still importing these guns. The first time that I had learned of them, here's your little Century tag, flag safety that comes in the gun. The first time I remember hearing about these was in 2009. I believe a Guns and Ammo article alerted me to the fact that these guns were coming into the marketplace.
Now back then I want to say they had an MSRP of something like $500. Nowadays you can find them online. Buds lists them at $318. I found them at other websites listed at $299. However, most places I found them online are not in stock. I stumbled across this at Westforth Guns, again in Gary, Indiana, when we were just doing our little roundabout traveling, looking at various gun shops trying to find bargains. I was able to buy this gun for $320 out the door. So it's not a very expensive gun, and that is for a brand new gun. All right, that's not for a used one, that's for a brand new one in the box. So let's take a closer look at this little guy and talk about where it draws some of its inspiration. Now, Arcus is a Bulgarian company, which I've mentioned already, and it has about a 50-year history of manufacturing. They manufacture all sorts of stuff. They manufacture parts for automobiles and bicycles and things like that, but they also have a long history of manufacturing weapons for the Bulgarian military, mortar shells, 40mm grenade launchers and grenades, things like that, and small arms like the 98DA. Now, this gun replaced the Model 94, which was more of a Browning high-power direct clone. This handgun, though, still is very much a Browning high-power at its core, with a SIG P220 trigger mechanism attached to it.
All right, guys, next up we have some 115 grain American steel. This is steel-cased ammunition. It has a brass wash over the steel case, and then it's just a standard 115 grain ball round. This is free to munitions as well. Let's see how this stuff cycles. The Arcus, it nose down when I use the slide release. So I'm going to go ahead and lock the slide to the rear, pull the magazine out, reseat that round in the magazine, and it chambered that time. All right, keep in mind, guys, this gun is bone dry, not a drop of lubrication on it. I'm just shooting at a wood stump out there about 35 yards away, and it's tearing it up. Seems like the sights are really on this thing. Another magazine, chambered at that time. And perfect function. Had that one little nose diving incident there. I may not have had the round all the way seated to the rear of the magazine, which can cause those types of malfunctions. But so far so good. This is a pretty neat little pistol. Let's see what else we have in the Jeep. I think we have some American Eagle, and we might even have some Wolf steel cased ammo. We can run through this little guy, see how it works.
The entire gun is made from forgings. And so Arcus is one of those companies that is actually ISO 9001-2000 compliant, so they have gone that extra step to be certified, which means they take their business obviously quite seriously. They are a foundry. This gun is made from forgings, and it's machined. It's all CNC machined. That includes the lower and upper assemblies. Matter of fact, I can't find any plastic components on this gun or even MEM parts. Looking at the slide stop, which is very Browning high-power-esque in its appearance, and its safety lever, these are both apparently machined from forgings. They're not MEM, like you would expect from a modern manufacturer.
Now we have some Wolf, and this is just straight-up steel-cased ammunition with their polycoat over at the Performance Ammunition. 115 grain ball. We have 2 magazines of it. So we have 30 rounds. Let's see how she does. So with all the ammunition types so far, seems to be shooting pretty much the same point of aim.
So let's tear the gun down and take a look at it on the inside. Now these grips that you see here that have this pebble stone texture to them with the finger grooves, which actually fit my hand quite well. Jason likes them as well. These are factory grips. This is how the gun ships. This is the only non-metal component I can find literally on the gun, right? Are these Hogue type grips. To take the gun apart, I'm going to drop the magazine out. It does have a standard magazine release button right here where we would expect it. Push that with your thumb and the magazine comes out of the gun. Now, let me show you something very quickly. This is a Browning high power. This is a Canadian English high power, but the magazines haven't changed. You can see that the Arcus magazine is very similar. The Browning high power holds 13 rounds, but this one's just a little bit taller, so it can accommodate 15 rounds of ammunition. The two magazines are not compatible. You cannot use a Browning high power magazine in the gun. It simply won't fit and won't reach the latch. It's just too short. So I wanted to show you that. But you can definitely tell that it draws its magazine inspiration from the Browning high power. All right, we'll go ahead and put the magazine back in the English and we'll set it over there and keep our two magazines, the Arcus here. Now to field strip the Arcus, I'm going to go ahead, because we have been shooting the gun, I'm going to make sure that it's empty. We have field stripped the gun and cleaned it before we started filming this particular segment, and the gun is empty. Now to field strip the gun, it's just like a Browning high power. You have your manual cocked and locked safety here. You can see two notches cut into the slide. So what we're going to do is pull the slide fully to the rear until that safety latch can engage with that notch. Once that's done, just like a Browning high power, you have a pin which protrudes from the right side of the lower receiver. Just push on that with your finger, and this will push up on it, and it'll pull out, and that cross pin will come out. Now the upper and lower can be separated simply by releasing this safety. Now hold on to the slide, guys, because it is under the recoil spring pressure. Pop that down, and the two separate. Now again, I'm not going to delve too much into the lower. This is all machined from a forging, so it is steel. It does have a trigger mechanism, from what I can tell, that's very reminiscent of the SIG P220, but it's not an identical copy. The gun does have, let me get my little pointer here, a big pin. It does have a firing pin safety. That's important because the gun is a double action, single action pistol. However, it does not have a decocker. Now, you must use extreme caution, but you can technically carry this pistol with a live round in the chamber because it is impossible for the gun to fire unless the trigger is pulled, and in doing so, the trigger releases the firing pin with that plunger safety. Now, if you take a look at the recoil spring and guide rod, guys, this is straight up Browning high power stuff. I mean, that's just, I could probably put that in the Browning high power. I mean, it's that close of a copy. Take the barrel out of the slide, and now you have the barrel. Now this is obviously quite different than the high power, similar but geometrically different, but it still uses the Browning style of locking, which is a lot like the 1911. These are your locking rings, if you will, that engage with the slide. So that's pretty much all you need to do to basically field strip the gun. It is a heavy piece of equipment. They've tried to reduce the weight a little bit by making those CZ style cuts, or maybe CZ got the idea from this gun, but you can see it's kind of triangular. They've taken that material off that's unnecessary to try to lighten the slide a little bit. But it's not a light slide. It has a standard external extractor, and we did notice when we went to clean it this afternoon that the 3 dots on the rear sight got smudged and started to come off with the use of standard CLP. So we were using break-free CLP to clean the gun, and the white dots came off, or started to come off. We couldn't even get them completely off. They smeared on that rear sight. The rear sight, the gun shoots both left for me a little bit and for Jason, so I'm probably going to drift the sight over just a wee bit to get it back on center. Elevation looks to be pretty good. Both the front and rear sights are dovetailed. I don't know that it will accept any other types of sights. I haven't found any information on that, so you may be stuck with these sights. The lower, I mean, it's very narrow except for obviously where it's widened, so you can get this double stack magazine into it. It feels a little bit thicker than a Browning high power, but it has something that the high power doesn't, and that's this large beaver tail. One of the problems with the high power, which I have in my right hand, you'll notice how the meat of my hand is riding up underneath where that hammer is. That's going to cause hammer bite. The Arcus does away with that by putting that huge beaver tail in there. Now it makes the gun look a little bit goofy externally, But other than that, it's highly functional. It keeps you from getting such a high grip on the gun that you actually get the meaty portion of your hand bitten by either the slide or the hammer coming back.
So we went from shooting a brand new handgun to hunting deer. We have deer tracks. You have to come back out here and get Bambi. Just can't shoot Bambi legally in Indiana with a 9mm. All right, so this is just hodgepodge ammo, and we're going to do something here for our friends, the Safety Sallies, and we're going to shoot not just across water, we're going to shoot across ice. So let's aim at some leaves out there. So I just finally made it to water. So it's been cold out here for a while, guys. I mean, we're talking below 0 and maybe the teens for a high for a couple of weeks now. And it took most of a magazine to dig a hole through that ice. Let's try it again. There we go, there's water. And again, perfect function with the Arcus. Starting to like this little pistol quite a bit.
Putting the gun back together is really simple. We'll start with the slide here. I'm going to take the barrel, drop it down inside, take the recoil spring and guide, slide it in, set it on its perch. Now what I want to show you guys really quick while we have this apart is what an actual Browning high power looks like. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take this Inglis apart. It comes apart the exact same way. Look at those two slide stop pins. This is the Arcus. This is the Browning high power. Can you guys kind of start to understand just how similar this gun is to the Browning high power? I'm going to go ahead and release the slide from the high power and let it come forward. And look at that, guys. Actually, it does look like it's about the same height. It looked a little bit taller, but it's pretty close. Take the recoil spring out of the World War II era high power, take the recoil spring out of the Arcus, and let's just see what happens. Let's put the World War II high power spring in the Arcus here and see if we can even get it to go back together. That's pretty interesting. Yeah, I mean, they're pretty much geometrically identical. Now, I can see some slightly different cuts. They won't go back together. There are some slight differences here and how the guide rod is cut, so I'm not going to attempt to put it together. I don't want to damage a World War II original part, but that's how similar these two guns are. Basically, it's a double action, single action version of the Browning high power, which means you should expect extremely good reliability out of the gun. In shooting the gun this afternoon, we fired over 300, 350 rounds through the gun of various types of ammunition. We fired some 147 grain Freedom munitions. The stuff is loaded fairly mild. It's great for suppressors. We've ran into some problems with guns not liking it because it's so mildly loaded, but it's some of their new stuff. The gun cycled it just fine. We have some of the Freedom Munitions American steel. This stuff's a little bit warmer, but it has a 115 grain projectile. It does have a steel case that has a brass washing over it, so it doesn't look like steel, but it is. We also fired some 124 grain Freedom Munitions, which would be a standard NATO ball load, and again, no problems. We fired the American Eagle 9mm. This is 124 grain NATO style load once again. No problems to report. We even fired some Wolf Polyformance 9mm 115 grain stuff out of the gun, and again, no problems to report. The only issues that we had with the gun were that with my gloves on, I actually caused two false locks. That was just how I was holding the gun with those mechanics gloves on. And then we did have one nosediving round when I went to chamber a round, but that was just user error more than likely. The round wasn't seated all the way in the magazine. It's common.
I just did it again.
Unlike the Browning high power, it does not have a magazine safety. So that's an important feature. A lot of people don't like the magazine safety. Many people that like high powers will remove the magazine safety from the gun, which you can do. Now, the Browning high power does not have a drop safety. So if you're carrying this thing cocked and locked, an original high power, that's kind of a dangerous proposition. That's why the Israelis came up with the Israeli method of carry, which is carrying the gun with a loaded magazine and an empty chamber. The guns simply aren't drop safe. You don't even want to put a round in the chamber, put the hammer down against it because the gun can fire if dropped. The Arcus resolves that issue. Okay, let's go ahead and put the slide back on the Arcus. And again, you just lock it to the rear with your manual safety. I will say that the manual safety is a bit more positive than the high power safety as well. It has a better click detent. You can feel it. It's more 1911-ish feeling. It's not as subdued. It has pretty aggressive texturing on it, and it sticks out far enough where you can easily get to it. I carry 1911s periodically. It's the only gun I will carry cocked and locked. Even though this gun has the facilities for it, you really should probably not carry it cocked and locked unless you're very experienced with the handgun. You would most likely want to load the weapon and then ease the hammer forward and make sure that you don't drop the hammer and make the gun go off. Now you see some guys cowboying it and doing that. It does have a spurred hammer. What you won't find though is if you take a look at the Browning high power, that little hole to the high power actually gives you something to grab onto. When you're pinching this hammer, it's very smooth and it's very easy because it's not textured on the side and there's no hole through it. It's very easy for that to slip through your fingers, and it's very easy to have an accidental discharge in putting that hammer forward. The gun does have a half cock as well, which is also safe to carry because again, it can't fire unless the trigger is pulled. So overall, the ergonomics of the gun are very good. Again, if you're used to the Browning high power, you're going to find the controls extremely familiar to you. The only thing that's going to be a little bit different is the thicker grip. This rubber grip is quite thick. But for 320 bucks, we've found this gun to be extremely shootable. It's, I don't like the fact that the dots came off with a little bit of CLP while we were cleaning it, but the gun has that rugged reliability that you would expect out of a Browning high power.
All right, so being me and having this Arctic cold weather and snow, what else am I going to do except take a live round, put it into the Arcus, I'm going to decock it, and now I'm going to lay her in the snow. Should be about ambient temperature now already. I'm going to sit in the Jeep for a little while and warm up, but I'm kind of curious if the Arcus, once it freezes, will work.
So it has an overall length of about 8 inches. It has a barrel length of 4.7 inches, an overall height of 5.5 inches, and has an empty weight of about 34 ounces. So the gun is, the finish on it almost looks like a park. It has the texture of a park finish, but overall it's very well made.
It's been about a half hour. Let's see how the Arcus does. It's definitely frozen. I can feel the snow sticking to it. It's good and frozen. All right, just walk over here. Clear myself a spot to put my finger in there. Oh yeah, it's frozen. There's ice in the trigger guard. All right, here we go. Let's see how she works. I think I got 15 rounds loaded. Not surprised. I mean, after all, it's pretty much a Bulgarian-made high power that just has a double action trigger assembly attached to it.
The double action is heavy, gritty. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much a standard military double action, and this gun is used by the Bulgarian military and police forces, and I've read reports that can't confirm that it's also been adopted by the new Iraqi army. I don't know that that's true. It's just reports I've read online, but I've not been able to substantiate that claim. But it's interesting because the gun really does have appeal to countries that like Browning high powers. And Browning high powers loved the world over. This gun is still in military service all over the world. Arcus bringing a well-made double action version of it to market makes sense. And everything that I've read is that the gun is, it's pretty popular in Europe. When I bought the handgun, I wanted to have it simply because it's a military service weapon and I love to collect military firearms. But once I started shooting it, I thought it was goofy looking. I wasn't all that sure I was going to be impressed with it. But once I started shooting it, I realized very quickly I like the gun. The single action on the gun is extremely good. Over travel, yes, but the break on it is the slightest hint of creep and then just a really clean break. The reset on the gun would be right about here. That's reset, and that's full release, and that's in single action. So fire, reset right there, and full release. So I found that the gun is easy to shoot. This one seems again to be shooting a little bit left for both Jason and I, which is easily remedied by drifting this dovetailed rear sight. So overall, I would say I'm pretty darn impressed with the handgun. I also found out that my friends over at Gun Mag Warehouse have original factory Arcus magazines, and they're like $21.99. I did order a couple of them, so I would have at least 4 magazines, because with guns like this, you just never know if they're going to, go off the U.S. market. Like I said, I looked all over online trying to find one online. I couldn't find one. I found one just hanging out at a local gun shop. So yeah, the gun is well made. It has this ridge across the top, this anti-glare ridge. The sights are typical military sights. They're not high profile, they're not exactly high vis, they're just okay. The overall appearance of the gun, I'll leave that up to you. I think it's okay looking. It's right here, it kind of loses me. I think its design styling is a little bit awkward there. When it's cocked, it actually looks pretty sharp, but with it decocked, it just looks like there's just not enough room in there. This should perhaps be more rounded. It's set up for that offhand shooting style that was popular in the late 80s, early 90s of hooking your finger over the trigger guard, which most people have long since have stopped using that particular style of shooting. But that's what that's set up for. It's textured on the front, has a ledge there so that you can shoot it like this with your index finger hooking over the front of the trigger guard. The slide serration's very sharp, easy to grab, and again, the thing is very, very smooth. So, if you guys are interested in a handgun, you don't want to spend a whole lot of money, and you can find one, I'm actually pretty fond of this little Arcus pistol. Now, I have to shoot it some more. Again, we've only put a little over 300 rounds to it this afternoon. It's pretty darn cold, but we also did one quick torture test because it was so stinking cold when we were outside. We froze the gun with a round in the chamber just to see what would happen, and the gun functioned flawlessly. It fired the first round and cycled the rest of the magazine, and the magazines again hold 15 plus 1, with a plus 1 going in the pipe, so you can have a total of 16 rounds. So if you guys are in the market, again, for a handgun that's affordable, well made, and hopefully available, you might want to check out Gun Broker, look around online. You may still be able to find one somewhere. I don't know if Century is still importing them, but you might want to take a look at the Arcus 9. Now, there are holsters that this gun will fit into. As a matter of fact, Westforth Guns had 2 of the guns there brand new in the box, which leads me to believe Century is still bringing them in. But one was $40 more because it had a Super Tuck style holster with it that I didn't want because I never plan on carrying the handgun. So I opted for the gun without the holster package deal that they were offering. So apparently holsters are out there, but it might be challenging to find them. If you're looking for night sights, I'm not sure you're going to find anything for this gun, simply because I'm not sure what dovetails these sights might support. I don't know. So you might be stuck with the sights the gun comes with, but there are holster options out there. Plus, you can always do custom Kydex, which there's plenty of Kydex holster manufacturers out there. Guys, if you have any questions about the Arcus 9mm, you can ask those questions down below. We do try to stick around for the first couple of days after the videos go live to answer the questions that you guys may have. Also, please consider swinging by becoming a Patreon supporter. Our Patreons get all sorts of special treatment. They get really good, if you're a squad leader above, great pricing from Copper Custom. You have your special area of the site that you can go to that only those Patreons can see, but occasionally all Patreons are given codes that give them great discounts on red dot sights, firearms, accessories, all sorts of stuff. We try to do those codes several times a month. But we also have our friends over at Freedom Munitions who so generously give away $300 in ammunition every month. So what we do is we break that up into $100 increments, and 3 lucky winners will get a $100 certificate for use at the Freedom Munitions website. And they sell more than just their own brand of ammo. They sell all types of ammunition from all sorts of manufacturers, and you can use that $100 to purchase that ammunition as a thank you for supporting us at Patreon. Also, please check out Forged from Freedom. And Forged from Freedom are the guys that make our t-shirts. There is a link down below both to Patreon and to Forged from Freedom. We have some t-shirts that are made just for us. Forged from Freedom also gives away 5 of those t-shirts to 5 lucky winners every month for our Patreons. You get to pick the design and size that you want, and we do that again every month as a thank you for you guys. But don't just support us, folks. Please support all the content creators that you regularly consume their content over on Patreon. That's because YouTube has taken our money away, and in the case of firearms and knives and airsoft and people like that, we're getting account strikes constantly. They're trying to push us off YouTube. They've successfully pushed James Yeager off YouTube, and they're coming for all of us. Even Forgotten Weapons has gotten a strike recently. So we're constantly battling that. And being a patron supporter certainly does help us. Also, guys, please swing by and check out Copper Custom. It's our online store. We have a lot of great products at great prices. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all those years of support. And we'll talk to you guys soon.
So, guys, I have to give Jason props. While we were shooting that segment, every single spent case almost hit him in the forehead, and he didn't move. Good job, man.
True dedication.
It's dedication. All right, let's try that one more time.